What is going on, A to Z Sports? Sam Phelan here with you live for Titans at 2. Getting a little bit of a preview into the 2024 offseason, looking at the Tennessee Titans salary cap and how the team can create more salary cap by making 3 cuts. So I have found 3 players that Ran Carthon and company and Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan could potentially cut for the Titans here in the days leading up to free agency to create more salary cap space for a team that already has an abundance of it. So going to give you those 3 names. Then I'm going to talk about a player that is not going to be cut. And I'm going to set the record straight on a lot of misconceptions about a certain Titans player. So got all of that to dive into. Should be a good show. And a reminder that Titans at 2 this afternoon is sponsored by the boys and girls pre-K through 5th grade Youth Titans NFL Flag Football Leagues. It's the Youth Titans NFL Flag Football Leagues. Again, boys and girls pre-K through 5th grade in and around Nashville for a once-a-week program starting on Sundays for a total of 2 hours. The season starting here in March and going through May. So 2 hours on Sundays, March through May. Football doesn't have to be done just because it's the spring. The link is in the description of today's show on YouTube on www.titansflagfootball.com. Let's go ahead and get into some of these players who I believe could be cap casualties for the Titans. Now, some of them may not actually end up getting cut. I do believe of these 3, there is one that is a possibility to stay, and I believe there are 2 absolute no-brainers and a little bit of a tricky situation as well when you consider post-June 1st cuts being a possibility. The Titans do have a lot of salary cap space. They're number 3 in the NFL in practical salary cap space, according to overthecap.com. I'm not sure they're even going to be able to spend all of the cap space in one offseason. I'm not sure that they will. By doing those things, you could potentially hurt your cap availability for next year if guys want multi-year deals and things like that. So we'll see how much the Titans end up spending. But if they do need cap space, there are 3 names here that really jump out to me that I believe could be cuts that the Titans make. Let's start with the obvious. And somebody who is in their own category here because of his contract structure and the fact that he could potentially be designated as a post-June 1st cut. Let's start with Andre Dillard. You see the stats right there, 12 games played, 12 sacks, 41 pressures allowed. It was an absolute disaster for Andre Dillard in 2023. It was a risky signing. The Titans, I think, tried to get some bang for their buck. They went bargain bin hunting a little bit on somebody who had not been getting starting opportunities in Philadelphia, and it just didn't work. Andre Dillard's not a good left tackle. He's not a very good football player. I don't believe he has the drive and tenacity and attitude to be a starting offensive lineman. The good news for the Titans is that there was some cap flexibility. And as Nicole says, this one shouldn't even be a question. It's not. The question here for Andre Dillard is what you see at the bottom, the post-June 1st savings. The way that this contract is structured and the way that any NFL contract is structured, when somebody is cut, they can be designated as a pre-June 1st cut or a post-June 1st cut if they have multiple years left on their contract. Andre Dillard got a multi-year deal. He's not going into the last year of his deal. And so he can be designated as a post-June 1st cut if the Titans would like to. What that does is give them more salary cap space in 2024. That number that I just put up there, that, that 2.87 becomes $6.48 million, saves them nearly $4 million extra in salary cap space this year, but it does hurt their salary cap space next year. The Titans would then essentially, by designating somebody as a post-June 1st cut, the money that was going to accelerate onto the 2024 cap can be divided over 2 seasons. It would be then a split between the 2024 cap and the 2025 cap. So the Titans get more cap flexibility this season, less next season. So if you're the Titans, do you necessarily want to take that $4 million this year, or do you want to pay it, bite that bullet, get ahead of it next year? Here's the other wrinkle with a post June 1st designation. You do not have that cap space until after June 1st. It would not be that Andre Dillard isn't cut by the Titans until after June 1st. He would be cut before then and just designated. So it would be like in March, you hear the announcement that the Titans are cutting Andre Dillard, but designating him as a post June 1st cut. And it wouldn't technically be official until June 1st. But because of that, like I said, you don't get access to that money. So while that money is more, it is $4 million more and is $6.5 million of cap space. If the Titans are hoping to use that money in free agency, they would not have it at their disposal. Now, if there is a situation like a DeAndre Hopkins who is looming and sitting on the open market in June and in July and in August, that money becomes a huge factor because you are getting additional cap flexibility late in the offseason when a lot of teams have already used their resources. But majority of players, of course, are going to want to sign in that initial mid-March window when free agency opens up before teams use their cap space. And so how beneficial is it? It's not a question to me if Andre Dillard will get cut. I think it is how he gets cut and how the Titans want to do it. Hill says pay it. I would lean towards paying the hit in 2024, pre-June 1st cut, take less savings to have the savings hit your cap immediately and just bite the bullet and get more cap flexibility for next offseason. Like I said, I don't necessarily believe the Titans are going to use all 60-something million dollars of cap space that they have this year. I don't know how realistic of a plan that would be for them to do in one offseason. That's a lot of money to spend. But I do think it would behoove them to have additional room next year. So that's Andre Dillard. I do believe he's getting cut. He won't be back. I do believe it would be smarter for them to do that as a pre-June 1st cut. The other no-brainer to me is Luke Gifford. Luke Gifford is not nearly as much cap savings. He signed a 2-year deal with the Titans. So he signed the 2-year deal last year with the Titans. So he's going into the second year of his 2-year deal. But he played 11 games and had 6 tackles. He was a special teams only linebacker. I believe, if you can save $2 million against the cap on a special teams only linebacker, that's probably something that you do, especially one that wasn't really able to stay healthy. And Luke Gifford was not really able to stay healthy. He always seemed to have something in practice or the games. This one feels like a no-brainer to me as well. You cut him, you get the $2 million in cap space. You can always find another Luke Gifford for $2 million and potentially one that's better or has some defensive value or, has some special teams ability. So, yes, he's a talented special teams player. The injuries concern me here. This one maybe is not as cut and dry as Dillard because the trade-off is not as significant. Andre Dillard has other guarantees in his contract where keeping him on the roster would mean that you're guaranteeing him more money in the future. He also has a larger cap hit. The cap hit on Andre Dillard, if he is on the team, let's see if I can pull it up here. It is over $10 million is his cap number. It's just $2 million for Luke Gifford. So maybe there is an idea of Gifford, $2 million, insignificant, special teams impact, some veteran leadership, you keep him around. Not as cut and dry as Andre Dillard, but I just think for the value that you're getting of 6 tackles for $2 million, you're paying the guy a lot of money per tackle at that rate. You're paying him like 350 grand per tackle, 330 grand per tackle. So potentially not the bang for your buck that you're wanting. Also might depend on how much of that salary cap space the Titans are going to plan to use. Like I said, if they need additional salary cap space, if they're starting to cut it close and they want to free up some room so that they can add a bigger contract, maybe Gifford is a casualty of that. But if they're not coming close to that cap number, perhaps he stays. I could go either way on that one. Why did they sign Dillard to a 3-year deal in the first place, asks the Crooks. Quite simply because the risk was rather small. I mean, it was really more of a 2023 risk than anything else, because when you look at the guaranteed money on Andre Dillard's contract, most of the guaranteed money was on that 2023 deal. They get out from a lot of the money just by cutting him this offseason. So it was essentially a 1-year deal, but had Andre Dillard worked out like they thought it was kind of a lottery ticket for them in the first place. Had Andre Dillard worked, they were getting a left tackle that would have been their starting left tackle well below market value for a starting left tackle. That would have opened up a lot for them in other avenues this offseason, and it opened up a lot of avenues for them last offseason, and the fact that they were able to sign a DeAndre Hopkins, that they were able to go and make a move like that, is because they went a step down at left tackle. Now, it didn't work, and in hindsight, you don't make that move. You probably pay more of a premium to add somebody else. But 3-year deals are not 3-year deals in the National Football League. It depends on the guarantees and how many years those guarantees exist for. MB says the deal should have been incentive-based. There was a lot of incentives. I will say that, MB. There was a lot of incentives in the Andre Dillard contract, almost entirely on snap counts, on the percentage of snaps played, which is really the only way you're able to do an incentive-based deal for an offensive lineman, because everything else is almost like an arbitrary stat. Even something like sacks allowed and pressures allowed and those sort of things are not necessarily the most objective stat possible to use, quite like you can with a wide receiver, where it's like, oh, well, if this guy has so many catches or so many receiving yards, maybe you do team sacks allowed, maybe you do wins as other incentives for Andre Dillard. They did snap count, and he did not hit any of those incentives. I believe that was part of the reason why the Titans benched Andre Dillard when they did. Taking away his snaps actually saved them a couple $1 million of paying him last offseason. And that was always a good thing to do when you realize that he was not your left tackle of the future. You could have also done maybe a second-year guarantees with certain, snap counts and stuff. But alas, they are now going to part ways with him. That I have no doubts about. So Andre Dillard 1, Luke Gifford 2. The third one I'm less sold on. You could probably convince me either way, and I lean towards keeping this player, and it's Elijah Molden. It is Elijah Molden, who played 15 games for the Titans. You can save basically $3 million in cap. He's not eligible for a post-June 1st cut or anything like that, because it is the 4th year of his rookie contract. So this is the last year of his rookie deal with the Titans. Again, they could save $3 million. He played 15 games for them at safety last year. Kind of a weird year where he made the transition to safety and then was kind of forced into the role after the Kevin Byard trade of being of just being the full-time safety back there with Amani Hooker. Chris says he wouldn't be surprised if he's cut, and that's kind of where I fall, is I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. But as Hill and MB are saying, I lean towards keeping him because, again, the Titans have, I'll pull up the exact number right now, but the Titans have over $65 million in cap space. Effective cap space is $59 million for the Tennessee Titans this offseason. I don't expect them to be up against that number and really be pinching pennies. And so Elijah Molden's contract is expiring at the end of 2024 anyway. It's not like this is going to be a contract that is a burden for you in 2025. Perhaps, as Isaac says, new defensive coordinator and former defensive backs coach Denard Wilson could help Elijah Molden succeed a little bit more. And so, if this was $6, $7, $8 million, you probably cut Elijah Molden, because I don't think he's a premier player on your defense that warrants that amount of money. But the Titans are really at a loss in the secondary right now. And for $3 million, I don't know if it's worth it. You have Amani Hooker, you have Roger McCreary, and that's kind of it as far as like surefire defensive backs on this defense right now. Sean Murphy-Bunting is a free agent. Christian Fulton is a free agent. You've got the UDFAs like Eric Garrer or Trey Avery. Terrell Edmonds is going to be a free agent. There's just not a ton of depth here. And so even if he's a depth safety DB that can slide down into the nickel, I think Elijah Molden is a piece that the Titans should look to bring back for such a small number. I've been seeing his name floated out there as a, hey, watch him as a cut candidate. I'm just not sure that one makes a ton of sense unless you really, really need the money. So those are kind of the three names where they could save the most money possible. And one no-brainer, one on the fence, one that I lean towards no. But there's somebody else who I have to talk about, and it's DeAndre Hopkins. So I will talk about DeAndre Hopkins' contract. I have a lot of thoughts that I got to get off my chest about it. But before I do that, a reminder that Titans at 2 is sponsored by the Aura app, because the internet is a scary place and anyone can find anything, including your full name, your personal email, your home address, phone numbers, even relatives. Aura found 30 data brokers that had my information. Data brokers sell information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and people that just want to learn more information about you. So they had my information or submitted opt-out requests on my behalf, got my information removed from all of those lists so that my phone's not getting no caller IDs and spam calls all the time. And it keeps me protected online. They've got a VPN, a password manager, real-time credit and identity theft monitoring. Literally, they can do all of the hard work to keep you safe online in a digital world that we live in. So sign up with Aura to get a 2-week free trial by using the link aura.com/ATOZ. That's aura.com/ATOZ for a 2-week free trial. Let's talk D-Hop. Keep D-Hop. Come on, Sam, is what Kenneth has to say. D-Hop's not going anywhere. D-Hop is not going anywhere. And I've seen this put out there by people on the internet, on Twitter, talking about if DeAndre Hopkins wants out, he has an opt-out in his contract. He can opt out. False. No, he cannot. DeAndre Hopkins does not have an opt-out in his contract. If you go to Spotrac and you just Google DeAndre Hopkins contract and you look and you see the words out, it is referring to an out potentially for the team, for the Titans. Why do you put an out in a contract if you're the Titans? Not to give DeAndre Hopkins the option of going elsewhere should he choose, to give yourself the flexibility of cutting him loose and saving some money should things not go well. Should the old 31-year-old wide receiver not stay healthy? Should you have another instance of a Julio Jones or all of the veteran receivers that have come to the Titans when they've been washed up, should that happen again? That did not happen. DeAndre Hopkins was very, very, very good for the Titans last year, was over 1,000 yards in an offense that really struggled to get anything going for most of the season. He was their one saving grace in the passing game in a year in which Treylon Burks fell on his face. Kyle Phillips was hurt for pretty much the entire year. And your other two receiving options were Nick Westbrook-Akine and a veteran and Chris Moore. DeAndre Hopkins is still a top receiving talent in the league. I'm not going to argue semantics about where he is on a hierarchy, but I do think he's at least a number 2 to number 1. I do think he's consistently a 1,000-yard guy in the right offense, 1,200, 1,300-yard guy. And so if you're the Titans, it makes zero sense to cut DeAndre Hopkins, to move on from DeAndre Hopkins. They can save something like $8 million in cap space, but they'd still be paying, or maybe they save like $10 million, but they'd still pay him $8 million. You're still paying him a chunk of money. And I'll tell you what the Titans are not going to do. Let DeAndre Hopkins go elsewhere, pay him $8 million to play for somebody else when wide receiver is one of this team's top needs. So I've seen people saying online, and I'm not even talking about fans, I'm talking about people with platforms saying online, if DeAndre Hopkins wants out, the Titans will grant it to him. That is not true. My understanding of the situation is that is not true. That is not based on any sort of actual information. And so DeAndre Hopkins will be a Tennessee Titan in 2024. You can take that to the bank. Even if he doesn't want to necessarily be here, the Titans have zero incentive to let him go elsewhere. And therefore, I don't expect them to. Have to get that off my chest because that keeps getting put out there. So let there be no debate out there right now. Let there be no debate in the world that DeAndre Hopkins will be a Titans wide receiver. I think if you're building a receiving core for this fall, whether that be looking at some of these top names in free agency, whether that be looking at one in the first few rounds of the NFL draft, you are looking at somebody to partner with DeAndre Hopkins, not replace DeAndre Hopkins. So let's just let the record show. All right, let's put that out there. Wanted to do that. Biggest question is about Henry. So what Chris Johnson says, and sure, there are some questions out there about whether Derrick Henry will be back. I would lean towards no, personally. I just believe the Titans are going towards more of a clean break from the John Robinson, Mike Vrabel days. Now looking to get things started in the Ran Carthon, Brian Callahan era, using Ran Carthon's draft picks from last year, the people they draft this year, and the free agents that they acquire together. So I lean towards no. I think it's probably better for Derrick Henry as well to go elsewhere, find some place that he can get the lion's share of carries. I think the Titans want to use Tyjae Spears more frequently, give him more usage in their offense. So potentially mutually beneficial there. It sucks. It really sucks to think about Derrick Henry wearing another team's uniform, breaking 10,000 yards in another team's uniform. Those are milestones that would have been incredible to watch him hit as a Tennessee Titan. But I think for Derrick's career, as far as adding to his career stats, padding the NFL Hall of Fame resume, potentially contending for a Super Bowl, somewhere else is probably better. And Chris, I agree. I think Baltimore is the best fit. So where do they get another running back? Kenneth wants to know. You can find one in the late rounds of the draft, potentially. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of NFL teams like to do right now. I mean, I think Tyjae Spears is the primary 3-down back for the team in 2024. He has shown his ability to be a very adequate pass protector, very adequate in the passing game as far as route running and pass catching. I do think the style that Tyjae runs, where he's a little bit more of a smaller, faster back, didn't play 5 to 10 years ago, but I think is more frequently used nowadays. I think some of these running backs that you see running a lot of outside zone and having a ton of success are that style of runner. And so I think Tyjae Spears can absolutely be the Titans' primary back. And then you maybe just look for a back with power running ability, a power back on 3rd and 2 that you can run in between the tackles and trust to just be difficult to tackle one-on-one as a potential replacement, not a replacement, but the supplement to Tyjae Spears in the backfield. So maybe it's late in the draft. Maybe it's a free agent. Cody Schrader would not be a bad go for my money, Kenneth. I also like the guy out of UCLA, Carson Steele. And there are some options. Maybe you reunite with Deontay Foreman. He's more of the style of Tyjae Spears. He's a bit smaller, but there are free agents out there as well that you could get for a bargain at this point. We know what the NFL is valuing running backs at right now, and it's not all that high. So that's what I see them doing in the backfield. I really would be surprised at this point if Derrick Henry was part of those plans. That's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in to Titans at 2, man. Don't forget to leave a like on the show before you go. It helps me out a ton as more people get caught up with these 3 roster cuts Ran Carthon and the Titans could make to potentially get some extra cap space this offseason. Do any of them happen? I think so. I think at least Andre Dillard. Do all of them happen? Maybe not. We'll see as things get closer and play out here. A lot can happen in the offseason. Things are ever changing. I've got all of it for you here on Titans at 2, here on A to Z Sports, as well as on A2ZSports.com with written content. Thanks for hanging out. Till next time, tighten up. We'll see you.